I was picking out baby names while my husband was picking out rings for my sister, and when I found the engagement receipt in his coat, I realized they were planning a wedding before our baby was even born. I found the receipt in his coat pocket while looking for my chapstick. 6 months pregnant, swollen feet propped up on our coffee table, and there it was, a $3,200 engagement ring purchase from 3 days ago. The same day I texted him baby name ideas and he responded with whatever you want, babe. My hands started shaking before my brain even processed what I was seeing. We've been together 4 years, married for 2. I thought we were solid. He brought me ice cream when I had morning sickness, assembled the crib without complaining, even seemed excited about becoming a dad. But apparently while I was researching cribs and strollers on Pinterest at 2 a.m., he was researching how to start over with my little sister Maya. While I was planning our future, he was planning his escape route from it. The signs were there, I just painted them different colors in my head because I wanted so desperately to believe in us. Him working late when Maya was visiting from college. They're inside jokes that made me feel like the third wheel in my own living room. The way he'd light up when she texted, that same boyish grin he used to give me when we first started dating. I told myself it was just friendship. I told myself I was being paranoid because of pregnancy hormones making me emotional and irrational. Maya was 7 years younger, still in college, still had that effortless way of laughing that I'd lost somewhere between mortgage payments and doctor appointments and the crushing weight of adult responsibility. She'd stay with us on weekends, curl up on our couch like she belonged there, stealing the remote and making David laugh at shows I found stupid. I actually encouraged it, thought it was sweet how close they'd gotten, how protective he was of her. God, I was so incredibly stupid. I started noticing other things once I let myself actually see them. How he'd shower immediately after she left, like he was washing away evidence. How his phone was always face down now, when it used to just sit there openly. How he'd gotten suddenly interested in her college stories, her drama with roommates, her plans after graduation. He never asked about my day at work anymore, but he knew Maya's class schedule by heart. He knew which professors she liked, which friends were giving her trouble, what she wanted to major in. The night I found the receipt, I also found the text thread he'd forgotten to delete. 8 months of I love you and can't wait to be with you in just a little longer, baby. 8 months of planning their future while I planned ours. There were photos, her in lingerie I'd never seen, him shirtless in our bedroom while I was at my prenatal appointments. Screenshots of apartment listings they'd been looking at together. Plans for trips they wanted to take. A whole secret life built on the ruins of mine. How long? I asked when he came home from his alleged work dinner, the receipt crumpled in my shaking hand. I was sitting in the dark, hadn't been able to turn the lights on because then it would all be real. He didn't even try to deny it. Just stood there in the doorway, keys still in his hand, and looked at me with this resigned, almost relieved expression. Like he was glad he didn't have to pretend anymore. Since last Christmas, he said, sitting down across from me like we were discussing dinner plans. Last Christmas. When I'd been 12 weeks pregnant and so sick I could barely keep water down. When Maya had helped him pick out my present, a necklace I'd never worn because it wasn't my style at all, too flashy and young for me. Now I knew why. She'd picked it out for herself, probably tried it on in the store while he watched and smiled. The baby? I whispered, touching my belly where our son was kicking like he could sense the tension. We'll figure it out. Maya and I love each other. This isn't just some affair, we want to build a life together. We've been talking about it for months. I stared at him, this man I'd loved for 4 years, the father of my unborn child, and realized I was looking at a complete stranger. He'd been planning his exit strategy while I'd been planning our nursery. He'd been choosing baby names with her while brushing off the lists I'd sent him. All those times he'd seemed distracted or tired, he wasn't thinking about work stress, he was thinking about her. Get out, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Sarah, let's be adults about this. We can work out custody. Get out. I screamed, and something in my voice made him actually step backward. He packed a bag that same night, moving through our bedroom like he was collecting evidence from a crime scene. Took his clothes, his laptop, his cologne, and the ultrasound photos from our refrigerator, the ones where you could barely make out our baby's profile, the ones I'd been so excited to show him. Left the crib he'd assembled, the changing table we'd picked out together at 3 different stores, and me, 6 months pregnant and suddenly understanding that love doesn't guarantee anything, that promises are just words people say until they find something better. Maya texted me the next morning, "Can we talk? I know you're hurt, but I need you to understand." I blocked her number before I could read the rest. There was nothing left to say, Nothing she could possibly tell me that would make this hurt less or make sense of how my husband and my sister had decided my life was disposable. They moved in together 2 weeks later. Maya dropped out of college to play house with my husband, abandoning her degree 6 months before graduation because love was more important than her future, apparently. I moved back in with my parents at 28 years old, pregnant and humiliated, sleeping in my childhood bedroom surrounded by participation trophies and prom photos, trying to figure out how my life had imploded so completely. The divorce was swift and brutal. David wanted it finalized before the baby came, didn't want any messy complications. He signed papers with the same efficiency he'd used to plan his new life, his lawyer handling everything while I sat there trying not to cry in front of strangers. Maya was there with him at the lawyer's office. I saw them through the window when I arrived, her hand on his knee like she was comforting him through this difficult time. Like I was just an inconvenience they were finally handling properly. My friends tried to be supportive at first, but half of them had been Maya's friends before they were mine. She was 7 years younger, more fun, more spontaneous, uncomplicated by things like mortgages and morning sickness and the boring realities of adult life. Slowly, the group chat got quieter. The invitations stopped coming. They weren't choosing sides, they assured me when I asked. They just wanted to avoid drama, didn't want to be put in an awkward position. It was easier to phase me out than deal with the messiness of my situation. My parents were supportive but bewildered, trying to process how their son-in-law had become a stranger overnight. They'd loved David, had already started calling him their son, buying gifts for their future grandchild that he'd help raise. Now they had to pretend he didn't exist while helping me prepare for a baby whose father had already moved on to someone else. Mom would find me crying over the crib at 2 a.m., staring at the mobile we'd hung together, and not know what to say to make any of it better. The baby came in December on the coldest day of the year. I named him Oliver, one of the names from the list I'd texted David 9 months ago, back when I thought we were building something together. David came to the hospital, held his son for exactly 12 minutes while I watched the clock, then said he had to get back to Maya. She was stressed about him being there, apparently, couldn't handle him seeing me vulnerable and exhausted and still connected to our past. Oliver is 8 months old now. He has David's dark hair and his stubborn chin, his father's hands and his grandmother's eyes. David pays child support through an app so we never have to speak, and sees him every other weekend, always at his mother's house, never at the apartment he shares with Maya. She doesn't want reminders of his past life cluttering up their fresh start, doesn't want to see the evidence of what he had before her. They got married last month in a ceremony I heard about through Facebook. I saw the photos before my cousin tagged me in them by accident, then quickly untagged me when she realized her mistake. Maya wore white, a flowing dress that emphasized how young and carefree she still was, how untouched by real responsibility. The venue was the botanical garden I'd always dreamed of, the one I'd shown David pictures of when we talked about renewing our vows someday. David looked happy in those photos in a way I'd forgotten he could look. Genuinely, radiantly happy, like he'd finally found what he'd been searching for. Maya glowed beside him, her hand on his chest, looking up at him like he'd hung the moon. They looked like they belonged together in a way that made my chest ache with the recognition that he'd never looked at me like that, not even on our wedding day. The worst part isn't the loneliness or the single parenting or even the financial stress of trying to raise a baby on one income. It's knowing that somewhere in this city, my sister is living the life I thought was mine. She's probably making David coffee the way he likes it in the morning, listening to his work stories over dinner, planning their weekend trips and their future kids and their dream house. She gets to be the woman he comes home to excited to see, the one he lights up for when she walks in the room, the one he chose when he could have chosen anyone. And I'm the cautionary tale they probably don't even think about anymore. The first wife. The practice round. The woman who got left behind for something younger and better and more exciting. The one who taught him what he didn't want so he could find what he did. Oliver babbles from his high chair, smearing sweet potato across his face and clapping his chubby hands, and I smile because he's perfect and beautiful and none of this mess is his fault. But when he sleeps and the apartment gets quiet and I'm alone with my thoughts, I can't stop wondering what I could have done differently. How I missed 8 months of signs that my marriage was ending. How I became so forgettable that my own sister could take my place without losing a single night of sleep over it. Some nights I drive past their apartment, not stalking, just torturing myself in the way you can't stop touching a bruise. I see them through the window sometimes, Maya curled up against David on our old couch, and I realize this is my life now. Watching other people live the story I thought was mine, raising our son alone while they build their happily ever after on the ruins of everything I thought was real, everything I thought I could count on. The ring he bought her probably looks perfect on her finger, young and unmarked by the disappointments that come with time. And I'm just the woman who came before, the one who got left behind when something better walked into the room wearing my sister's face.